Hello and welcome to another episode of Sensational She-Geek live from Yancey Street. Today is Tuesday, June 1st, 2021, and this is episode 20A. I have to do a little bit of explanation beforehand. This is an A episode, and while they are normally and will continue to be in the future on Mondays, the reason that this episode is on Tuesday instead is because, first of all, my 19B episode was delayed for reasons that I might someday go into until Sunday, and it was a little bit pressure to do those so quickly back to back. So I pushed it back for that reason, and also because here in the US it was a bank holiday over the weekend. So I'm sure there were a lot of people who had plans that were not listening to me rambling on about the things that I do here on my podcast. So I have saved that until today. And if you did have that 3-day weekend, I hope you did something nice and relaxing. And if you did not have that 3-day weekend, I definitely hope that you have some time to get relaxation in here in the future. Normally on A episodes, we start with the comic book pull list. And while I will get into that at the front half of the episode, I want to start things off first by going into Tom King's Batman Catwoman relationship, because we do have another issue of that comic coming out this week, and it has been a while since I have dived into the explanation about what Tom King has laid out for their relationship from tip to tail. So I'll go into that explanation, which covers a number of different comics and series. So I'll cover all of that and how it ties into Batman Catwoman right now, and hopefully that will be a solid explanation for anybody who is either confused with the Batman Catwoman stuff, doesn't quite follow what's happening, or you're not interested in it because of either of those reasons as well. So we'll go over that, and after that I do have a short theory on some Batcat stuff in future state that's happening that's probably going to be a lot sooner than we thought, so I'll go into that after Batcat. And then the comic book pull list. So we have a lot of really cool stuff, some really interesting indie stuff that's coming out this week, number ones. So we'll talk about those after I talk about the whole Batcat stuff like I normally do. After the comic book pull list, we will be talking about Moon Knight. They had the official casting announcement for Marc Spector's Moon Knight this week, or last week, I suppose. So we'll be going into that a little bit, as well as discussing the Moon Knight property on Disney Plus and what we know about it so far. And finally, we'll be wrapping up this week's A episode with Horizon Zero Dawn, The Forbidden West. They had the trailer for the sequel game come out just in the past couple of days. If you know much about me, this is, for a bunch of reasons, one of the only games that I continue to play. They continue to make it phenomenal, and they also have some stuff about a new comic series coming up. So I'm going to end the episode in doing some really, really fun Horizon Zero Dawn talk. I am so enthusiastic about this game for a person who is not really a gamer, so I can't wait to discuss this with you, and I hope that you get some inspiration to either play the game or read the comic or get the new game when it comes out, which is going to be on PS5, and I have already started saving up for that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the comic book pull list, which is prefaced by the Batcat explanation. Now, before I get into any of this, since there is an issue of Batcat that is already out today, since it is Tuesday and DC puts their stuff out on Tuesdays, just know that I have not read any DC stuff. I picked that up on Wednesdays with everything else. So anything that I go into with Batman, Catwoman, or other DC comics today, I have not read any of that stuff. So if I make myself look like a fool with my theories, it's because I haven't read any of the stuff, and I will not be reading it until tomorrow. So I will talk about anything that I completely mess up my theories with on the Friday's episode. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started with the Batcat explanation. As usual, if you are someone who would like to skip over my comic book talk and get directly into the other stuff, today's episode you'll want to skip to about 42.5 minutes in, and I will be just about wrapping up my comic book pull list. So to start things off, it really shouldn't have to be explained that I'm obviously a very big fan of Tom King's comic book writing, as well as a fan of everything that he has done with the Batman-Catwoman relationship. So if I sound biased, it's because I am. I really like this stuff. I think that it is very smart writing, and I am aware that there are people who don't quite get it, so that's why I continue to do these every so often explanations of this. So to dive in with the whole idea of this is basically Batman Catwoman, the series. It's going to be 12 issues in an annual. It is pretty much wrapping up Tom King's Batman plan. If you recall, he was supposed to get 100 issues of Batman, and because people had the whole thing with the wedding is what started to screw over his Batman run, which if you've listened to any podcasts about that from him and artists who have worked on that run of Batman with him during that time, it wasn't supposed to be marketed the way that it was marketed. There was never supposed to be marketing for the wedding. There was never supposed to be marketing for any of that. It was supposed to be just he proposes, she says yes, and then they don't get married. It was never supposed to be this, will they, won't they get married? The only will they, won't they was what she was going to say to his proposal. There was never supposed to be a wedding. That was never part of the plan. The fact that marketing started pushing, oh, there's going to be a Batcat wedding, and people got so excited for that, and then it never happened. That's a big part in my mind of what screwed over Tom King's Batman run. So his Batman run, instead of having 100 issues, he ended up only having 85. So these 12 issues, 13 of the Batman Catwoman series that we're getting now for DC Black Label, in my mind, wraps up the Tom King Batman run and the plan that he had to kind of finish. I'm sure there would have been other stuff that he would have put in that, but this is what I see as the integral part of that story to finish. To start, in Tom King's 85 issues of his Batman run over the course of several years, we saw Bruce and Selina come to the conclusion that a wedding wasn't going to make them any more in love and wasn't going to justify them, and they don't need any justification anyway from anyone to stay together. So that's point one. In Batman Annual number 2, which is probably still one of my top 5 single comic book issues of all time. I reread it every so often. It's phenomenal. I say phenomenal too much. I gotta find a new adjective. In Batman Annual number 2, we see Bruce and Selina's relationship laid out from their first kiss to the last kiss, which plays out as from being villain and vigilante in the beginning to being loving woman at her life partner's deathbed at the end. It is also worth noting here that Bruce and Selina remember meeting in different ways. One of them remembers meeting on the street, and one of them remembers meeting on a boat. It's something that is repeated several times, more than several, pretty many times in Tom King's Batman work, the boat and the street, how they continue to remember meeting differently. The explanation for that, because I'm sure there are people who didn't understand or didn't pick up on what that was referring to, Bruce and Selina met on a street in the Frank Miller Year 1 story, which is Batman number 404. That was by Frank Miller. It's, I'm pretty sure, considered canon at this point. That is how they met. In the original Batman comic, Batman number 1, 80 years ago, Bob Kane and Bill Finger had Batman and Selina meeting on a boat. So, both of Bruce and Selina are technically correct for their constant lifelong argument of when did we meet first. And it's a cute little tidbit for their relationship that they continue to have here. I guess that's what they might call an Easter egg in certain circles. So there's a nice Easter egg Tom King has been putting in the Batman stuff. We'll go with that. Next up, we have Detective Comics 1027, which was, of course, an anthology issue covering the 1000th issue, wow, couldn't get that out, of Batman being in Detective Comics. So this was Tom King working with legendary artist, Walt Simonson, and together they made a story explaining the now already established Bruce succumbing to cancer. As I said in Batman Annual number 2, she's sitting by his deathbed as he's dying of cancer. And we see why he has cancer, and that is thanks to an ancient history at that point encounter with the radioactive villain Dr. Phosphorus, who was a villain created by Walt Simonson. And the whole idea here is basically Phosphorus wanted to know that he would be the reason Batman would die, no matter how long that would take. He wanted to know that he was going to be the guy who took down Batman. And in the end, he is, even though I'm sure Phosphorus is long dead at the point where Bruce dies, but it is Phosphorus's fault that Bruce did get cancer, because Bruce was fighting him without gloves on, and that is how he got the cancer that would eventually kill him, i.e. being Phosphorus's fault. I don't know if I used i.e. there correctly, but you know what I mean. So that's Detective Comics 1027. Really great story, too. Currently, in the Batman Catwoman series, we are seeing how the character of, I guess you could say villain of Mask of the Phantasm, or I guess the Phantasm, right? I guess it's more appropriate how the movie Mask of the Phantasm and the character of the Phantasm is connected to the main DC Universe comics for the first time, right? Including the Phantasm herself, Bruce's ex, Andrea Beaumont. So, Mask of the Phantasm being a legendary Batman animated series style movie, I've seen it a couple of times at this point. It's really fun. And of course, you get the reveal that Bruce's, I guess, lover at that point, Andrea Beaumont, is the villain, the Phantasm, who is a revenge-seeking vigilante-type character, but she's all about killing people. So you see how that's like kind of a tricky line for Bruce there. And Selina gets involved, which we'll talk about in a second when we get to what's currently going on, what is going on throughout Batcat, the actual series. So finally here, we're going to have coming up, as an addition to this whole arc of their relationship from the start to the end that Tom King has made, he's adding a new piece here, and that's going to be the Batman Catwoman Annual, and in that we're supposed to be seeing the first interactions, potentially, of Bruce and Selina as children. I'm not sure if they're actually going to be interacting, or if it's just going to show the connection that they had growing up, because she is apparently going to be staying for some amount of time in one of the Wayne orphanages. So whether she interacts with Bruce there, or whether it's just that she's familiar with the Wayne family because of her past, I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see in that annual when it comes out, I believe, in July. And then going into the Batman Catwoman series and what actually happens in that, it takes place, it shows the Batcat love affair across 3 time periods that it takes place. The thing is, what some people find a little bit tricky, but honestly I find to be stellar, that's my new adjective, there are no breaks or clear indicators in the time periods. You have to pay attention to things like location, speech, text, outfits, background things, faces, to follow which panels belong in which story. But once you get the hang of that, I know it sounds like that might be kind of complicated. It's really not, because this art is so beautiful, and the way that it's written, just it makes sense. And once you get the hang of that, and once you catch on, it's not really getting the hang of it, it is just catching on to that. It becomes like watching an episode of a brilliant mystery TV show, and it's a very satisfying read, and each issue I'm just so excited to pick up, because it's something that you can usually read fairly quickly, but you don't want to, because it is so beautiful. Clay Mann is the artist on Tom King's Batman Catwoman. He's not going to be the artist on the annual that's coming up in July, but he's the artist of the main series. And you may have heard it's been delayed a couple of times, not since it started coming out, but the first issue was delayed for probably, a year. There's a really good reason for that, and that is because Clay Mann is a goddamn art god. It's so beautiful. If you don't even care for the story, at least pick it up for the art, because it is like some of the best, no doubt the best Batman art, but like absolutely top tier DC art, comic book art in general. It is, I love it. So Batman Catwoman, the series itself, takes place over 3 different time periods, right? And that's why the whole thing about it doesn't show any clear breaks or indicators. Here are the 3 different time periods that you can pick up on, the costumes, the faces that look older or younger. It really is a lot easier than I made it sound, but here are the time periods. We have, first of all, early time period where Bruce and Selina are like vigilante and villain. Selina is kind of working with a freshly released Joker and lying to Bruce about it, but kind of juggling the situation to keep Bruce's secret, or rather Batman's secrets, from the Joker, since she is very, I guess now openly to the vigilante community, dating or a lover of Batman. And at this point in the series, where we are with a couple issues in now, Selina has just admitted to Bruce that she's been lying to him about working with the Joker, which he's obviously pissed about. He has to go save these people. That was what she admitted to him. She knew what was going on. It was kind of getting to be a bit too much guilt. So they have a tiny little confrontation that pretty much is the standard thing of him being solemn and quiet and just staring, and her like understanding his judgment and just kind of, you know what, screw you, don't judge me, you don't understand me, and taking off. And then he takes off his direction, she takes off hers, and she's clearly a lot more upset about it than she was willing to admit to Bruce there. So the second time period is the modern time period, which picks up following-ish Tom King's 85 Batman issues, somewhere thereabouts. Andrea Beaumont, at this point, has returned to Gotham in search of her youngish son, who, at the beginning of the series, Batman and Catwoman find dead by way of the Joker and his gang. Andrea's Phantasm, right, because she was the villain in Mask of the Phantasm. That is her. She's the Phantasm. Her Phantasm is back and hunting down any of people who had worked for the Joker, and she eventually gets to Selina on that list, because remember, in the early part of the series, we're seeing that Selina did work with the Joker. And now Selina, after their altercation, Selina is kind of trapped in her hideout. She obviously knows Andrea is Phantasm. That's never been a secret between them and Bruce. Between her and Bruce, I suppose, since he's known that, or since she's returned to Gotham. So Selina's in Andrea's hideout, and I guess waiting to see if Bruce is going to trade her life for the Joker's by handing him over for Andrea to kill. But it's clearly not going to be that easy, because he's Bruce, and even Selina is kind of like, well, maybe we can do something else. And Andrea's saying, hell no, I'm killing this man. He killed my son. You get it. So the third time period is the future, and this is where you get the aged faces and the characters who are very different from either the other two time periods. It is post Bruce's death, which, remember, is what we saw happening in Batman Annual number 2, and the reason for which happening in Detective Comics 1027. And now that Bruce has died, Selina drives to Florida to visit a very aged Joker, and she ends up killing him for, in her words, what he did to Andrea. We have yet to see what that is. We can assume that part of it is the death of her son, but there is something here. I am convinced there is more to it than just the death of her son. We have more than half the series left over here. There's no way it's just that simple. Also, at this point in the future, we have her daughter, Bruce and Selina's daughter, Helena Wayne, who is Batwoman, and I have so much praise for Clay Mann's design and drawings of her. It's just chef's kiss, so much, over and over again. Helena is obviously really awesome, and she is quickly putting together the pieces of what her mother has done, and we get the image that she is definitely not going to approve once that image is clear. So then I have to ask, how is this going to end once all the cards are shown? Once Helena knows that it was her mother who killed the Joker, Helena is not going to back down, and neither will Selina. How is this going to end? As I said, we have many issues left, so I'm thinking maybe there's going to be there's going to be more added to the plot that will complicate the situation further. We have yet to see, but that is more or less the explanation of what is happening in Batman Catwoman. If I missed anything, I apologize. If you still have questions about it, ask me, because I know a lot about this stuff. This is probably the third time I've done this loosely explained sort of explanation on this podcast. I kind of use the same not really script, the same like outline with additions, so if there's something that you think I should change, let me know. Otherwise, that is Batcat Explained. Before I get into the remainder of the poll list really quick, I just wanted to throw out my Batman Catwoman future state theory, I guess is what I'm going to call this. And here we go, just laying it out in front of you. In future state, we see 1. Selina and Bruce having been separated for an unknown amount of time. 2. Bruce on the run from this magistrate and this person known as Peacekeeper 01. 3. Tim Fox as the new main Batman. Okay. Tim Fox, currently in the DC Universe, is starring in his own Origin of Being Batman series called Batman Second Son. There's actually another issue coming out this week. It's by John Ridley. Check it out. It's really good. Right now, in my opinion, shitty Batman series, we have 1. Bruce and Selina having taken a 1-year break. They are still currently on. And 2. Teases in marketing for the annual, which will apparently include a John Ridley written Tim Fox story called We Are Batman. You see where I'm going here. Based on all this information, I think it's really not so hard to deduce that the separation that we see Bruce and Selina going through in Future State is the same 1-year break they're on right now. And this leg of Future State doesn't take place really far in the future like a lot of the other ones. It takes pretty much a year from when they said, let's take a year break. That's pretty much what I've gathered here. That's why we're seeing now, very quickly, Tim Fox getting the origin to becoming Batman. We'll see him becoming Batman for whatever amount of time. The We Are Batman thing, or I guess it's going to be I Am Batman. I said that right. I said that wrong. It's I Am Batman, not We Are Batman. I have no doubt that's going to be a series of the two of them trying to butt heads and I'm Batman. No, I'm better Batman. You know, that kind of thing that we have no doubt it's going to be happening. But that's my theory, that leg of Future State was not super far in the future. And we're gonna see the, like, peacekeepers and the magistrate and stuff happening in Gotham probably by summer in the comics, if I had to guess. So that's my theory on, I guess, just the Batman-Catwoman relationship right now. So let's get into the regular poll list. If you have things that you want to say about that theory, let me know, because I'm not reading the current Batman. I just have seen the marketing stuff for it. So if you have read something that contradicts my idea, let me know, because like I said, don't read it. The rest of the comic books for this week, we have some really cool stuff to talk about, including some fun indie stuff. The first issue that we'll go over is an indie #1 called Basilisk. It is by Cullen Bunn, who is a writer who I know from Marvel stuff for the most part. And once again, this is going to be a moment of a big two, quote unquote, big two writer going from the big two to an indie comic. And that tends to be where I find some of my favorite comics. So this is one that I will be for sure picking up and checking out. It is from Boom Comics. Boom has been putting out quite a boom of great things. I'm not funny. And I will read you a bit of the solicitation here. Overall, the story is pretty much a hive mind, a girl who's part of a hive mind breaks free and is tasked with taking down the rest of the hive mind members. So, I'll read a little bit of the solicitation here. It says, 5 individuals bound by a cult-like hive mind. They terrorize small towns with their horrifying supernatural sense-based powers, leaving death and destruction in their wake. Regan, one of the Chimera, escaped and has been in hiding with her murderous eyes bound, overcome with guilt. Until now, when a victim of her past forces her to hunt down the other 4 of her kind. That obviously sounds really unique and interesting, and that's why I'm going to be picking up this issue. Cullen Bunn, if I recall, was the one who did not the Mighty Valkyries, Fearless Defenders, I believe, as well as, I want to say, as Guardians of the Galaxy. 2 series I really enjoyed. So it's another big two going to indie stuff who I'm sure it's going to be great. We have Iron Man Annual #1 also this week, which is kicking off the Infinite Destinies, I guess mini event. I'm not really sure what they're calling it. It's only like 9 issues total that are going into this event. I'm not 100% sure I don't really have a theory on how this is going to end, because it seems a bit out of nowhere, to be honest. But basically Infinite Destinies is they're marketing it as the next arc of the story of the the Infinity Gems, right? Or the Infinity Stones, whichever way. I think it says stones in this solicitation, so we'll say stones. And they're getting, I suppose, fused to bearers, right? So we already know one of those is Star. Star only became Star, really, when she died and woke up with the reality gem fused to her chest. And then she had a whole mini-series around that by Kelly Thompson, another one that I recommend because it really established her as this kind of villainous character of chaos, and so we don't really know what to expect from her at any particular time, and I think that's awesome. So this Iron Man #1, I believe it is it's by Jed MacKay. I was going to say Christopher Cantwell. It is by Jed MacKay. Makes sense. He's also writing Black Cat, which is coming out this week as well, and I'm pretty sure Black Cat is kind of spearheading the Infinite Destinies event. She is like the center of it as far as I can tell, but we'll see probably a better idea of things once we read this Iron Man Annual. There is not a whole lot to go over with the Infinite Destinies thing based on the solicitation, but what it does say is, also in this issue, part 1 of 8 of Infinite Fury, where Nick Fury learns of the new incarnations of the Infinity Stones and sets off to find the Stone Bearers. And he'll take, I guess, all of the Marvel Universe, pit him against some powerful people, and I guess it's just going to go through the different, I guess it's an 8-part Infinite Destinies event, and it'll go through all different issues of that, for like a mini second story. I'm interested in the Infinite Destinies event, mostly because of Star and the characters who are going to be in this, like Black Cat, but I don't really know what to expect, so I'll kind of sit back and watch, and we'll talk about it later. The Invincible Red Sonja #2 is coming out this week. I enjoyed the first issue of this, but I did have some critiques, primarily with the art, which was, I guess I'll say, very much what you would expect from a cliche Red Sonja book. The women were very busty, and the men were very brawny. The story is wild. There's a lot that we have yet to see, that we have gotten teased is going to happen. It hasn't played out yet. And there's a lot of really cool variant covers. So I'm not sure if I'm going to keep up with this Invincible Red Sonja series to its whole. I think it's going to be like 10 issues or something. I'm not really sure. But, it's kind of fun. So I'll stick around for a little bit and let you know how this one goes, at least. Something I am a lot more excited for is Sensational Wonder Woman #4. Sensational Wonder Woman is, of course, the celebration of Wonder Woman's 80th anniversary, which, if you see on the covers of these issues, there are those blue and red triangles, it looks like. Apparently that is DC's logo for Wonder Woman's 80th that they have come up with. I don't know who came up with it, but they should not be hired for any other DC jobs, because it does not look like a comic book logo for comic book things. It looks like something, I don't know what it looks like, but it does not look like what it's supposed to be. This series also, it was digital first, so a lot of these have already been published, and I don't really do digital stuff, so I didn't read that. But what's cool about it to me is not only is this an anthology series where each issue is disconnected from the last, and they're all just fun stories covering Wonder Woman and things that she does and characters she interacts with, but it's all written and drawn, for the most part, by female creators. I think there's been a exception in the artist of last month's issue. I'm not entirely sure, but we do have entirely female creators again for this month. For the writer, we have Corina Bechko, Karina Bechko, I think is what that is. I'm not familiar with her work, but that is definitely a female writer writing this issue of Sensational Wonder Woman. And for the artist, we have artist Danny. I have seen some of Danny's stuff around. It is kind of in the vein of Peach Momoko. I would say crossed with something else, I'm not sure, but it's very cute. And that is also, she's doing the cover for this issue, but the variant, this is the best exciting thing for me, the variant cover for this issue, I'm really hoping I can get, because it's done by Megan Hetrick. I am a patron of Megan Hetrick. I highly recommend you become a patron of her as well. She is ridiculously hardworking. You have a Discord that you can join when you're a patron of her, and she's starting to get some more patron gifts and things sent out to people on a more regular basis, which is also very exciting. But it's fun being able to interact with her and a few other fans of hers on the Discord. She is a absolute wealth of knowledge when it comes to art and how to improve your art and physical bodies and shapes like that. You'll see this cover is Wonder Woman getting ready to throw a spear, and she shared on the Discord a really fun photo of her posing in this pose so that she could get the musculature, not musculature necessarily, but, you know, the physical form down correctly of what a person who's about to chuck a spear really hard looks like. So it's really fun to be able to follow her stuff. I'm sure there's a lot of other artists who are similar in the way they handle their Patreons and things, but I just felt like since I am actually involved with this one, that I would actually talk about it for a few minutes. Swamp Thing number 4 is coming out again this week. This is a new Swamp Thing, remember, and I believe the original Alec Swamp Thing is going to be appearing in this issue. The reason, as I've said every single time this comes out, the reason that I'm reading this Swamp Thing series is because I am trying to figure out what Romvi's plan with Poison Ivy is, because he is writing her in this Swamp Thing series as well as in Catwoman. My whole idea of this is, I mean, what was already established by... not Jordi Belair. I can't remember who the writer was who established that in the Harley Quinn Poison Ivy series a year or two ago, was that Ivy, thanks to Tom King's Heroes in Crisis, is entirely plant form now. She is of the green, and that means that she can also she can put pods out that grow into additional forms of herself. So in the Catwoman series, we are seeing I should start in the Swamp Thing series, we have now seen Ivy as well as Poison Ivy, or rather Queen Ivy, who is the alpha of the she is the center of the Ivy hive, I guess you would say, and then she puts out all these additional bodies of herself that are just Ivy, and they aren't quite all there. And then the Catwoman series, it's one of those Ivies that Selina has just saved, and she doesn't seem to know anything about this. She thinks that's actually her friend Pamela Isley. There is no Pamela Isley technically anymore, but the closest thing that you'll ever get to that is the Queen Ivy center form, and she's still holed up here in Swamp Thing somewhere. So I'm trying to see how he's going to connect this Catwoman and Swamp Thing plots for Ivy, because I'm a huge fan of her. I've already talked about Batman Catwoman, which is coming out with its 5th issue this week. We're not even halfway through, which is why I was saying there's going to be so much more that we're going to learn between now and the end of the series. Moving on from that, because I've already given it so much talking time, Black Cat number 7, this is by Jed MacKay, and he has been totally killing it. I am so head over heels with his Black Cat. I regret not having read every single issue of the original series, the previous series that he did, because I had issues with the art. That artist is back, but they have definitely put some work in, because it is very much improved, in my opinion. It's not as good as some of the previous artists we've had on the Black Cat series, or guest artists, but they have definitely put in some work, and I am glad to see that. There's some really nuts, balls-to-the-wall shit happening in Black Cat right now, and it's only gonna get crazier, because we know that we're heading into Infinite Destinies, which we know is gonna be involving the Infinity Stones and them attaching themselves to people, so you can assume that one of them's gonna attach itself to Felicia, right? And where we're at right now in the Black Cat series, she is immortal, and the city of Manhattan is getting dragged into a, what would you call that? The tomb of this this god. Like, oh my gosh. It's just really cool. It's nuts, but it's so well done. Honestly, what more could you ask for? And Black Cat, she is getting her dues here, man. He's writing her so well. I am so proud. If you're not a fan of the character of Black Cat, this series would make you a fan of her. I recommend it. And if you're looking for strong female figures, full-bodied, fully fleshed out female figures is what I'm trying to say. Also, either of these Jed MacKay Black Cat series do it. You'll not regret it. I'm on the fence. Not on the. I have mixed feelings about Bliss number 8 coming out this week because it's the last issue, so it's exciting. But it's the last issue, so I don't want it to end. I am not exaggerating at all when I tell you that Bliss has been a life-changing experience. I should probably put comic book life-changing experience. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. In the past couple of years, I suppose you could say, I have definitely taken more of a keen eye to things like coloring and lettering and, paneling and page layouts and things like that. The actual mechanics of things that are more subtle that the average, possibly comic reader, would not necessarily stop and appreciate. Things like Maria LeVay, how she signs every panel that she draws, and it forces you to remember that these are things that take time for these creators to make, and it makes you want to spend more time appreciating it. And Bliss, Caitlin Yarsky's art in Bliss, while she doesn't sign every page, it is, oh gosh, it is so phenomenal. She practically makes caricatures of her characters for their designs, and it's genius, and her style is something that I always try to describe as like, oh yeah, it's like Tim Burton crossed with, like, I don't know, something else. It's impossible to describe, but Tim Burton is like the closest thing, but it's not at all Tim Burton. Tim Burton doesn't actually draw his own movies, so whoever it is that animates the Tim Burton movies, I guess. But Bliss... Oh, such a great experience with this series. If you are someone who enjoys paternal relationships being explored in comics, good God, pick this up. I think it's going to be 2 different volumes they're going to put out, 4 issues and 4 issues, I would imagine. I cannot urge you enough to check it out. It is gorgeous, it is thoughtful, it is well written. The world that it takes place in is this genius combination of fantasy and reality that you don't expect, but it's so unique to itself. I absolutely adore Bliss, and I'm so excited to see how it ends, and I have no doubt that it's going to be a bit of a tearjerker issue. And I'm sad that it's not going to be more. So I'm hoping to see these 2 team up again for something in the future or before too long. The 2 X books that we have this week are Hellions number 12 and X-Force. Well, I guess we have 3, isn't it? We have Hellions number 12, X-Force number 20, and Marauders number 21. That's some really cool stuff. Of course, Jerry Duggan is doing Marauders, Benjamin Percy is doing X-Force, and Zeb Wells is doing Hellions. I'm, to be honest, an issue behind on Hellions because I feel like a lot of these X books that are kind of wrapping up are definitely... They've made that turn from things that are continuing to, oh, okay, now this is definitely feels like it's stuff that's wrapping up. And I kind of feel like I drift away when that happens sometimes. But in any case, I X-Force and Marauders I'm still caught up with and are still really great. We're going into the Hellfire Gala with these issues. I am very excited for the Hellfire Gala. Of course, it's going to come alongside Planet Size X-Men number 1, which I have absolutely no doubt that Jonathan Hickman is furious, absolutely inflamed at Marvel marketing for putting that ad. I'm sure you've seen it if you've read Marvel stuff recently, or X-Books specifically recently. They've put an ad for Planet Size X-Men in that compares it to the Legacy of Giant Size X-Men number 1, which of course... changed the game, we'll just say, for X-Men. and that is quite a bar. And I would say every single time a comic publisher's marketing team starts putting stuff out about how this thing is going to change the game and it's going to be, the biggest thing of the decade and blah, blah, blah. It never is. It never is. Look at Empire. That was supposed to be this world-changing... Who cares about Empire? What happened? You had one good X-Men crossover series that had 4 issues and didn't even... the plant duties were barely even in it. I would bet money that Jonathan Hickman is pissed off that's how they decided to market Planet-Size X-Men, because that never pans out to the comic book's favor. Never, ever does. But that's what we have for X-Books this week, and I'm just excited for the future of X-Books because there's a lot coming up. If you didn't hear my talk in the last episode about Inferno, I spent, probably half an hour of that episode at the beginning talking about X-Men number 20, because I am so enamored with what's happening with Jonathan Hickman's writing, and I just want to share it with the world. It's beautiful. Love it as much as I do, please. I know people don't like it, but it's whatever. To each their own, I guess. And finally, for the comic book pull list, to wrap it all up, we have Vampirella number 20, which is by, it's by Christopher Priest. I was going to say Jonathan Priest. Christopher Priest. He's done some funky stuff with this. I would definitely say that there are more single issues of Priest's Vampirella series, which is coming out with the 20th issue, of course, this week. There are more single issues that I enjoy than the whole series as a whole. I know he has this Secret Six series that I don't know if it's still coming out or if he finished that already. It was a bit much for me. You've heard how I talk about some of these other things that are very convoluted and comic booky, but that was a bit much for me. I couldn't follow it. I don't know if it was because he was making up so many new names and things all at the same time. And all the characters, of course, of the Secret Six were... What I did enjoy about it is all those characters were pulled from different comic book or religious mythologies, which I found to be very interesting. It was just a lot to add to my already packed reading list, and a lot of complex stuff with already complex world, It just didn't work out for me, but I'm still enjoying his Vampirella series. It's a little bit all over the place, but the things that kind of remain as integral players, like her therapist chats and things like it's so enjoyable. I do dig it. I do dig it. Next up in the news segment, we have the Moon Knight official casting announcement. There has been rumors and such of Oscar Isaac being cast as Moon Knight for the past, year or so. It's kind of been something we've all known is the case, but they just didn't confirm it until recently, so now we can talk about it, or rather we will talk about it on the podcast. So it was announced officially, I suppose, in a post on Instagram, Oscar Isaac with a bunch of Moon Knight comic book art behind him with the caption, "We are Moon Knight." He's been cast as Marc Spector. Marc Spector is a elite mercenary soldier. He has multiple distinctive personalities, which he develops after becoming the embodiment of Khonshu, the Egyptian god of the moon. So there's a lot of stuff going on with the Moon Knight mythology. Khonshu is a character who is seen as positive or negative through the years, depending on what's going on. Most recently, negative in Jason Aaron's Avengers, which was an arc that I'm a really big fan of. Egyptian mythology and ancient Egyptian history and things like that. I'm a big dork about it, but that Jason Aaron arc of the Moon Knight stuff and all that, ancient Egyptian stuff, that was such a snooze. It was so boring. But anyway, we need a new Avengers writer. Moon Knight, he has multiple personalities. Now, there's one thing that I did some searching here, and I didn't see anything about it, which is a little bit disappointing, but, it's Disney Marvel, anything can happen. There had been for a while rumors that 2 other actors had been cast as Moon Knight before the Oscar Isaac more solid kind of casting rumor came forth, and that was, I believe, what is it, Jason Mantzoukas? He's the guy who plays Rafi on The League, right? It's him, and then the guy, I don't remember his name either, but the guy who played the dorky brother with the hook hand on Arrested Development, those two actors were both rumored to be cast as Moon Knight as well before the Oscar Isaac rumor came out, and people were like, wow, that's so much better. See, here's the thing. Those two actors are so different than Oscar Isaac. There is, like, Jason, what's his name? Rafi, he's a little bit closer, I guess, but that other actor, holy shit, it's a different playing field altogether. So the thought that I've had since those announcements were those rumors were put out, and I still can't help but feel like this might be the case, is they did cast those two actors as Moon Knight, or rather in the show as this main character, but different aspects of his personality. Because if you've read the comics, you know that oftentimes the different sides of his personalities, the different characters that take up his personalities and make up his personality, they often are physically different from one another. And they do have all different names. You have Mr. Knight, I know, is one of them, who's like this dude who wears a white suit. I think he's got like just a white face mask, kind of like, I guess, Moon Knight does normally. But it's a really cool kind of complex thing, and if they did make that decision to cast 3 separate actors as, you know, the different versions of the personalities of Moon Knight, oh my god, that's literally the best move they could make, in my opinion. I would so love to see that. But anyway, to kind of talk about things that are more, you know, stuff that we know to be true. This is Oscar Isaac's, of course, his second attempt at an Egyptian. A lot of the stuff I've picked up from articles and paraphrased, so sorry if it sounds weird like that. His second attempt at an Egyptian-based Marvel character, the first of which was Apocalypse in the 2016 X-Men Apocalypse, which was a Fox Men movie. Well, again, I'm a big fan of that whole vibe, right? The whole ancient Egypt, massive dork about it, big old dork, which I'm pretty sure means penis in a language. So sorry if you speak that language, I guess. But anyway, that movie was not very good. You get Psylocke being whatever the hell that was, which I guess the visual effects on her and stuff were cool, but like, she didn't do anything. I think she had a couple of lines, maybe. Storm was alright, I guess. Angel was weird. And then like, it's all, we've seen the different versions of these characters already, so is this a new, you know, the convoluted BS of the Foxmen is what that all was. And while he did a good enough job with what they gave him, they did not give him a very good role. That Apocalypse was not very apocalyptic. So a couple of things that he has going on right now, Oscar Isaac, if you're interested in finding out more about him going forward, he's going to be one of the many, many, many big names in Warner's Dune. And then, of course, he was Poe Dameron in Star Wars. He was 2 movies that, if you want to see his range, I would recommend these 2 movies, Ex Machina or Inside Llewellyn Davis. Of the 2, I would recommend Ex Machina over Inside Llewellyn Davis, which is really, really great movie. I've seen it once, I'm not going to watch it twice because it was super depressing. It just was so depressing. And then Ex Machina is, of course, a sci-fi movie. I think that would be the one where you see more of his range, because he plays a eclectic genius creep. Oh god, such a good movie. I super recommend it. Also, the guy who plays Hux in the new Star Wars stuff, the redheaded dude, he's also in that movie. So really cool stuff there if you're interested in seeing that. It's about robots, and it's really good. Watch Ex Machina. And I would be completely remiss if I did not mention that he also voiced Miguel O'Hara, aka Spider-Man 2099, in the end credits scene of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which pretty much makes us all know that he's going to pop up in the sequel as probably a main character. He was apparently credited as interesting person number 1 in those credits. Odd choice, but they do that sometimes, I guess. But him playing, Miguel O'Hara, he's got the Poe Dameron, which is kind of over, but it's gonna be around for the next decade as you know, something that people remember easily. Him being in Dune, assuming Dune does any good. And then his now second role as in a Marvel movie, Oscar Isaac, man, good job. Your agent. Wow, round of applause, really. Moon Knight has started production officially in Budapest. I think that's pretty cool. We're gonna see some nice scenery, hopefully. Other things we know about the series is it's going to be a TV series. The Daredevil and Altered Carbon actress Dina Shihabi, I don't know who she is, I'm sorry. She's reportedly being eyed for a Moon Knight role. Obviously not something that we would know what the role is because they only just announced Moon Knight himself. And then we know that's a rumor that's reportedly being eyed for. That's a rumor of a rumor, basically. But when we know for sure is that Ethan Hawke is going to be reportedly the lead villain. He's officially in that. He said all kinds of stuff about it. He's got all kinds of quotes. Moon Knight's arch nemesis in the comics is Bushman, who is a fellow mercenary and, you know, the classic former allied who turned villain. And I guess that happened, I just wrote up on it very briefly, I guess that happened when he wanted the whole Egyptian gold thing. Money ruins everything, you know. So we know Ethan Hawke's going to be in it. He's probably going to be that dude if we had to guess. We also know that May Kalamawi, who was, I guess, in something called Rami, I don't know anything about those names. She is apparently reportedly attached in an unknown role as well. And then Jeremy Slater, who was the head writer for Umbrella Academy, is the head writer for this Moon Knight show. And then the directors include Mohamed Diab from Clash, and Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead from The Endless. I guess it was supposed to start shooting in Hungary in March, but it's kind of more of a recent thing here towards May. And it's supposed to come out on Disney Plus in 2022, which, based on all of this, I can definitely see them being able to swing it. We're only midway through 2021. By the end of 2022, I have no doubt they'll have something to give us for Moon Knight. So I'm really excited for this. There is a Moon Knight action figure from Marvel Legends that was put out, I believe, last year. Yeah, it was last year. It's pretty cool. I recommend doing a light gray wash over it because it is a very bland, just white colored figure. I am super, super excited to see how they translate, well, a lot of factors about Moon Knight, but one thing that always comes to mind, of course, is the costume, how they're going to translate that into live action. One of the concerns, obviously, being this is a guy who wears white from head to toe, including a hood. So they definitely are going to have to do something to ensure 100% that it in no way resembles a Ku Klux Klan hood. Because obviously that would be horrifying and really, really not great. So assuming they do that, I'm trying to picture in my head what it would look like. And for some reason, what keeps coming up is spandex, and we have seen, you know, over and over again that that's not what they do in Marvel, the MCU, so I don't know why spandex is coming up. I guess because I'm thinking he's crazy, so he's gonna look ridiculous. I don't know, maybe they could go that direction. I'd love to see some people's ideas of what maybe an MCU Moon Knight might look like, though, because I am having a lot of trouble picturing it myself. If I was to guess, though, my best guess would be it's not going to be a fully white suit the way that it is in the comics. It's probably going to be a lot of silver and gold and black decorative bits around the white base. That would probably be the best guess. My best bet guess. Okay. Anyway, to wrap things up on this beautiful Tuesday, I hope you're having a nice day, whatever day it is you're listening to this. We're going to talk about Horizon Zero Dawn, because I love it. and we have something to talk about it. First of all, we're going to go into two things here. It's going to be the Forbidden West, which is the sequel game, not an extension, it's a full new game, and then we're going to go into Liberation, which is the next coming up comic book series, and we'll go into all the information we know about that. It's the second comic book series that Horizon Zero Dawn has had. So we'll go into both of these things, but let's start off with the trailer for the Forbidden West. We've all kind of known that the Forbidden West was going to, or rather that Horizon Zero Dawn was going to have a sequel. It was the game of the year in 2017 or whatever. I think it was when it came out, and it was that way for good reason. To kind of, I don't know, put context in, I guess. I've said many times before on this podcast that we were not allowed, my siblings and I were not allowed to play video games growing up. That was just not something we did in our house. The only video games I played before college period were when I would go to friends' houses very rarely and play on their whatever systems they had, and I was always really terrible at it. So it never lasted very long, and I probably had 2 hours total of gameplay on video games in my entire life before the age of 18. So once I got into college, I got my first system, which was a PlayStation Vita, and that's why I failed a business calculus that year, was because I sat in the back of the 200-person auditorium and watched Lost on the PlayStation Vita. Yeah, choices that we make, right? I have my degree now, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so I didn't. My point in saying all of this is there's probably 3 games in all of existence that I continue to go back to and have any desire to play. That is Little Big Planet, whatever that stupid Adventure Time game is that is like a kiddie game, but I got so sucked into it one day I think I played it 12 hours straight and forgot to eat. But and then the third one is Horizon Zero Dawn. If you have a love for this game, you will understand why other people love it. It's so great. It did have the extension of the Frozen Wilds that was really fun. It was a lot of new stuff that we got to see: new animals, new materials, new mythologies, new people, new monsters, new beasts, new problems. Oh, it was so great. And then of course it ends with Aloy heading out to the west, right? That's kind of what her next phase was always going to be. She's heading west. So we had the trailer finally officially released, which was more or less, to my knowledge, their official announcement of the game. It is going to be a PS5 exclusive for the first who knows how long of it being out as a game. So I guess I'm going to buy a PS5. I had no plans on that until this announcement. So let's go through some of the interesting and exciting things that we saw in the trailer, because there is some cool shit to look forward to here. Going through what we kind of see as far as what are the best things of the original Horizon Zero Dawn, and probably why it won Game of the Year. Big factor in that was the environment. They did such a phenomenal job of designing not only the look of the environment and the plants and the overgrowth and everything, but the days, how the suns rise and set, or the sun rises and sets, and the lighting and everything changes, and it feels so very natural and real. It's absolutely splendid. So some of the things that we see as far as environment and things to interact with and things like that go here is there are cliffs in the water, kind of sticking out as they do in like the I don't know where they filmed Avatar or whatever, but Pandora, the fake place, has those things. It's like that kind of big tall buildings of cities completely covered in plant overgrowth to an extent that we did not see in the first game. Much worse out in this side of the world, to the point where they kind of look like very oddly shaped tall mountains. We see some underwater structures filled with beautiful, colorful sea life, all kinds of new animals, seagulls and things, plants that look really dangerous, red lightning storms, the ability to swim underwater with a cool like oxygen mask thing that looks like she's probably going to have to build. There are sand dunes with cars dead in the water, dead in the sand dunes. Cactus in the desert, completely different types of desert than we saw in the original game. It's definitely a western desert. Overgrown Golden Gate Bridge. Some people who are new and cool who ride machine elephants? Like, what? It looks like the kind of plot of this is going to be plant life of some kind is affecting the animal life and machines of this Forbidden West, and Aloy is going to have to find a way to stop its progress and save the Earth. And you know what, man? This game takes place in San Francisco, okay? I don't know how many times I said I lived in San Francisco for like 5 years during college. I fell in love with the city. There's so much to be celebrated about it. And it is the West Coast New York, and it never gets that treatment. I'm so happy to see it popping up whenever I see it pop up in things, in media. Totally love it. This is going to be awesome for me as a former resident of San Francisco, because I will be getting to see, local things. Anybody, any resident or someone who's familiar with San Francisco, you get to see one of the scenes of this. Obviously, you see the Golden Gate Bridge completely overgrown and falling apart. And you also get to see the ferry building underwater, which kind of makes me think if the ferry building's underwater, shouldn't the Golden Gate Bridge be kind of underwater? But it doesn't really look like that, so maybe they kind of messed that one up. But I'll take it. This is really cool. I am so excited. Some other factors that we have here, we see that Aloy does narrate that the old ones, who I guess are the previous people who were around us, they perished 1,000 years ago. We hadn't really had a timeline before, but that's the best timeline that we've gotten at all so far, is that whatever happened 1,000 years ago. The dude who was the end of the first game, he was the guy who was part machine or whatever. He thought himself a priest or a prophet or something. I honestly don't remember, but he's apparently going to be back in this game too. Still where he was off there in the snowy parts of the world, so they're going to be very far apart, but whatever's going to be happening is probably going to be affecting both of them. And then I do have to mention, because it was something that was very, very talked about on Twitter last night or whatever it was. Some people were very, very easily tricked by some loser on the internet who screenshotted the absolute least flattering image of Aloy in the entire trailer, and they fell for it when he said that that's what she looks like now. In that image, she looks just as unlike herself in the original game as she does in the sequel. It's genuinely the worst screenshot that he could have taken. It does not look like Aloy in either game. It is just her making a confused expression from an odd angle, and he decided that was the thing to bitch about. He also felt the need to post a photoshopped version that he, I guess, felt was more suitable, which was in reality, honestly, just a total laughing stock. It was like it was like if you had a model, like an actual model, who did a full face of makeup, and then put on, like, Aloy's clothes. It was a joke. He had to have been trolling, because it was so bad. But anyway, obviously Aloy is incredible, whatever she looks like, even if that is what she looked like. Who honestly gives a rat's ass? This is not here for you to jerk off to. And now, with that, let's move on to the last bit of things that we have to talk about, and that is the next Horizon Zero Dawn comic book series. It is going to be called Horizon Zero Dawn Liberation. And this, while the first comic book series, which I so recommend, first comic book series went from issue 0 for Free Comic Book Day, and then had 4 issues falling out of that, I suppose. And I guess they're kind of calling that first series Sunhawk, which makes sense because we met this new character, kind of like got to know what's going on with her part of the world. It was all post-game also. Very notably, this next series is actually going to be taking place in the events of the first game, with Aloy and her friend and confidant Erend, who, if you remember, was the guy who carried the axe. He had kind of the shaved head and the beard. I mean, if they do any kind of romance in this, I'll be pissed the fuck off because that's dumb. But we have it's gonna be co-written by Anne Toole and another writer whose name I can't track down right this second. Ben McCaw, that's what it is. Ben McCaw and Anne Toole. Anne Toole, of course, wrote the first series, and she's also a major writer for the game. So it was really cool to have her insight on that, and I guess the Ben McCaw character is the narrative director of the game as well, so it makes sense to bring him in here for storyline that would have been happening during the game that we were actually playing. We have variant covers by Peach Momoko. Of course, she did variants for the last series as well. But the artist for the interiors this time is going to be Elmer Damaso. It was Anne Molina on the last series, which I thought was brilliant and perfect. However, they have moved on to this Elmer Damaso person. I guess he's done Robotech. I don't know anything about that. But that's who to expect on the project itself. We have variants for the first issue we have an Anne Molina variant, so that's kind of cool. Obviously, the Peach Momoko main variant. There is a blank sketch cover, a cover by Tolibao, Harvey Tolibao. I'm not really sure who that is, but that is another cover that we have. And then there is the B cover is a game art cover. Which I'm not sure. This just the general Titan Comics artist, I guess. I'm not really sure. And then for the second issue, since they do already have the solicits out for the next the August issues here, the second issue cover A is actually going to be by Justine Franny, who I really love as an artist, and I've been getting more and more of her stuff, and I'm really happy to see her getting more and more attention. Then there's another game art cover, another Harvey Talibao cover, and then the D cover this time, instead of Anne Molina, is Baldemar Rivas. So if you recognize any of those names, definitely check out this Horizon Zero Dawn series, because I want it to do well so we keep getting more. And I want this game to do well so that we keep getting more. I am such a big fan of the world and the effort that they have put into this to make it what it is. I will be happy having Horizon Zero Dawn properties once every 5 years, if it means that we continue getting them. And with that just about wraps up this week's podcast, episode 20A. If you have made it this far in the episode, like usual, thank you very much for listening through to the end, or for whatever portions of it you did. I very much appreciate any time that you spend listening to my ridiculous rambling here, because I do enjoy it so much, and I hope you do as well. You can find this podcast online everywhere podcast streams, beside Pandora, I think still, but including YouTube, and I think I'm actually going to put up my Batcat explanation that I put at the beginning of this. It's like 15 minutes or something of me explaining the whole Tom King Batcat relationship and the story that he's put out for them. I'm probably going to put that up on my YouTube page as a separate explanation video in addition to this podcast, just so people who would like to just hit up that part to catch up on what is going on with this situation can do so. So check that out if you want to listen to that again for whatever reason. But you can find me online. My website is sensationalshegeek.weebly.com. I don't put any money into it, and that's why it has that Weebly extension. I have been very, very lax about updating it, and I do apologize. Life has been very hectic, which again, I may get into someday explaining what's been going on, but not today. I also have social media, of course. My Instagram is Anna with the Comics. My Twitter is Savage She-Geek, because sensational was too many letters. I also have a TikTok, but it's not really, I mean, it's just Sensational She-Geek, but it's just me putzing around with my hobbies and things. Comics aren't my only hobby. I have a lot of hobbies. This is just one that, stands out so much in my life, and I would like to make a career out of a little bit, in a way. Also coming this week, we have, of course, Sailor Moon Eternal, volumes 1 and 2, which are going to be 2 separate full-length movies, as far as I know, are coming out on Thursday. So I'm not sure if it's going to be today or if it's going to be just later this week. I am going to put a Sailor Moon podcast special out that is going to be discussing pretty much at this point, because I have seen the old series, the original series, I have seen Sailor Moon Crystal, and I have now read 9/10 of the manga. I only have the 10th volume left to read, which is a very skinny volume, and I have no doubt I'll be able to finish it by Thursday. So I will be recording a Sailor Moon special edition of Sensational She-Geek Live at Yancey Street, where I'll be talking about why I like the character, my history of the character, the history of the character, some comparison between the different versions of the animated shows and movie. Oh, I haven't seen any of the movies. It's the only thing I haven't seen. And then kind of what, if they were to do exactly what happens in the comic, in the Dream arc they're basing this also off of, I'll talk about what to expect, or what we would expect, or rather, I guess I should say, what happens in the comic that they're basing these movies off of, so we then afterwards can compare it. Because I do get really excited about this stuff. I know people probably are like, Sailor Moon, that's a kid's show. It's fun, okay? It's fun. Let people like things. I wouldn't call myself a weeb either, so don't get that idea in your head. But I will talk about, my history with comics and manga, if you're interested in that Sailor Moon special, to try and, legitimize myself. And that is all I have today. Thank you so much for listening as long as you have listened. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, or, statements of types, let me know. Go ahead and like and subscribe, comment, share, post, follow. That's one you can do. Repost, retweet, whatever. Do the stuff that you can do. Interact with the podcast so that it pops up on more people's feeds and things, and they can interact with it as well. And if you do that, I super love it. So, thank you again for listening. This week is gonna be a good week for comics and gonna be a good week for nerdy stuff in media. No Spider-Man trailer today. I don't think it's gonna happen for a couple of days at the very max, or very least, sorry. But I will definitely talk about that whenever it does drop. So, have an excellent nerdy week. Get sweaty about your hobbies, whatever they may be, and don't be an asshole.